Well, welcome back to our weekly feature now, where we discuss the week's top stories. Among some of the stories that dominated headlines is the ANC's 114th anniversary celebrations and the surprise appointment of Advocate Andy Mothibi as the new head of the NPA. To help us unpack these and other stories, I'm now joined by an international relations expert and the director and senior research fellow at Africa-Asia Dialogue, Thembisa Fakude, as well as Mathata Tsedu, a veteran journalist and a columnist. Gentlemen, thank you to both of you for joining us tonight. I mean, last week was just an incredible week in the country, I suppose like any week, but the story that really caught my attention was the appointment of Advocate Andy Mothibi as the head of the National Prosecuting Authority, taking over from Shamila Batoy. Of course, this came as a surprise to many of us because there was a panel that interviewed a number of candidates for this position, but we're told that, well, those candidates were not suitable for these positions. And the president said, Andy Mothibi is the right man for the job. Perhaps I want to start with you here, Mr. Fakude. Is President right by saying Mothibi is the right man for this job?
Well, we'll have to wait and see, but the president has got a prerogative in this regard.
Yeah.
The processes were followed as per the statement that was issued by the spokesperson of the president, Mr. Vincent Magwenya. So the president applied his right in this regard in terms of appointing Advocate Mothibi. The surprise, of course, is that he's the man who's known to be a man of due process who takes his time, hence his nickname of Ramaphosa. He never makes swift decisions, and I think what shocked most South Africans is the swiftness this time around in terms of taking this decision. Yeah.
He has been doing an incredible work at the SIU. Mathata Tsedu, I want to bring you on board. I want to bring you in here. He has been doing incredible work at the SIU. What is it that he will need to do urgently to really make sure that the NPA does regain public trust?
Well, good evening. I think one of the things he might have to do is to decide whether the hearing with Andrew Chauke continues or it stops, because the behavior or the performance by Shamila Batory at that inquiry was really shambolic. So it's quite clear that the case has fallen apart. So maybe one of the very first things he's going to have to do is to get that out of the way completely. But then he has an in-tray that is full of Zondo, but also full of stuff that he himself sent to the NPA in his capacity as the head of the SIU. The Thembisa stuff that needs to be processed, and a whole host of the Zondo recommendations regarding people like Gwede Mantashe, Nomvula Mukonyane. These are going to be tough tests right at the beginning, and how he performs at that level is going to determine whether the next 2 years when he's there are going to turn public perception around the NPA.
One of the things, though, that has come out, Mr. Fakude, is that the NPA does not necessarily have some of the required skills, right, to be able to handle some of the most complex cases. Surely this is something that he's got to pay attention to if he needs to deal with the state capture cases.
No, certainly. But I think what's even more pressing, we need results. We need to see and the organization showing some successes. At the moment, we've had all of these commissions, and we had the arrogance of Advocate Bathoyi, who was not necessarily the most liked in South Africa, particularly in the last couple of weeks, because of her attitude, the commission that we saw displayed by her with total disregard of the South African public, notwithstanding, of course, that she was quite aware that all of us were watching the commission. She displayed absolute arrogance, and it's unfortunate, of course, that she leaves her office under the clout. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to be happening. But I think South Africans are more interested in results. We've had a number of commissions and nothing is going on in terms of persecution and holding those that are accused to account. Or we're not saying they must be arrested without due process, but at least there must be some, processes that indicate that there are going to be charges or there's work towards holding these people account. And we didn't see that under her tenure.
How easy is it going to be for him to really navigate this terrain? Because one of the things that has also come out was that the NPA is infiltrated by people who don't have its best interests. I want to bring you in here, Mr. Tsedu.
Yeah, maybe to start with the fact that the point you were raising earlier about the absence of skills within the NPA. The NPA, it's not going to be able to attract the kind of skills that it needs if it has the kind of cloud, it's operating under the kind of cloud that it is now. So there's almost like a dual process, a chicken and egg thing that Mr. Mothibi is going to have to navigate. He must improve the image and recruit. But even before the actual recruitment of permanent staff, there is nothing that stops the NPA from going out and sourcing the skills on a temporary basis to get the things going. And if he does that, and there are results that people can see, it will be easier for him to attract the kind of skills that he needs to be in-house at that moment. So I think that's really where he is going to have to juggle quite quickly.
Yeah. Another story that I want us to talk about, gentlemen, is the ANC's birthday celebrations in the Northwest. They've held these celebrations in a province that is literally falling apart in terms of service delivery. We saw ANC leaders last week going door to door there, seeing firsthand how the provincial government and how municipalities there have essentially collapsed. I mean, the Human Rights Commission last year issued a report where 14 out of 19 municipalities there were failing to provide some of the most basic service delivery. Do you think, Mr. Fakude, the people of the Northwest should actually take comfort on the fact that the ANC leadership went to that province and saw some of the challenges that they battle with every day?
Well, the ANC is tone deaf. The fact that they decided to select that province, which is known to have failed its people, and they went in there and, trying to avoid potholes that are all over the place, not only in Rustenburg, but in Mabatu and other places. There's an absolute collapse. So the ANC is tone deaf. I don't know what they're trying to do, because ordinarily what organizations will do, particularly leading to the local municipal elections this year, you will choose the best and show the best foot forward, so to speak. But they decided to go to a place where they know very well that there will be throngs of journalists attending those celebrations. And those journalists, of course, their concentration and attention was diverted into covering service delivery instead of covering the ANC. And they couldn't spin their way out. One would have expected that they would have chosen, given that, of course, this is a year of elections, they would have chosen a much more better space. But now we all know that this is an ANC that's tone deaf. And to an extent, it's become very arrogant, passing the buck as if the failures of municipalities, particularly in the Northwest, is the making of the citizens of that province, notwithstanding that they failed to read the Riot Act of all the mayors and the municipal managers, including the ward councillors in that province, to do better for their people. So I think it was their own goal. I know President Cyril Ramaphosa was impressed and emboldened by the numbers of people that attended, most of whom, by the way, were bussed in from various provinces. But it was an own goal for the ANC. I think many of us, at least for the duration of last week, we're just having story after story on how the municipalities and the wards in northwestern province have collapsed.
Mr. Tsedu, the president spent a considerable amount of time in his speech talking about how the ANC needs to fix local government and how local government is important in service delivery, right? He went as far as to say that this year, 2026, is time for the ANC to take decisive action when it comes to local government. Obviously, he was going to say that because it's an election year, right?
Yeah, and one would even ask, which time is it not time for the ANC to actually be serious about delivering? So it's empty talk, really. And as Mr. Fakude was saying, you're dealing with an organization that has become tone deaf. The potholes that characterize the road towards that stadium are potholes that characterize all areas. So there is nowhere where they would have been able to go and showcase something that is really quite good. I think there is a fundamental question that the ANC is going to have to ask itself. The January 8th jamboree started off with the then president of the ANC, Oliver Tambo, delivering the January 8th statement. He just read it. There were no rallies. But when they came back into the country, this tradition of doing these big things at big stadiums came about. And now things have really changed, and they are not going to be able to get back to FNB. That's why they ran to Khayelitsha last year, and now this year they've gone to Northwest. They couldn't fill the stadium. All kinds of excuses have now been proffered about why the stadiums were empty. But the reality is that people are tired of the same old speech. If you go back to last year's speech by President Ramaphosa, he would have said the same thing the year before, and he said it again this year. And people are really tired of being buzzed into the sun and basking in the sun and being bent while people who are talking to them are sitting under the shade.
One of the things that also came up in the president's address yesterday was the issue of organizational renewal. Now, I've heard this so many times. At what point, does the ANC stop talking about renewal? Mr. Fakude, help me understand. Maybe I just don't understand.
Again, the ANC has become tone deaf, and they started believing their own rhetoric and misleading information. We've been having about this renewal ever since, and we don't see the renewal taking place. Instead, we see these people coming in with their German expensive and luxurious sedans, avoiding all these potholes into the stadium and filling up the stadium with people that are well bussed in from various parts of the country to attend the January the 8th statement. But people are no fools. People are sick and tired of listening to this year after year and the promises that have been made while their lives are not improving and the services continue to collapse, particularly in Northwest. And I just can't understand how you can have this large, very huge contingent of journalists from all over the world and all over the world, by the way, and expect that they'll report that, you know, the ANC is doing well for its people. The story actually turned against the ANC, if you noticed last week. It was about the failure of the ANC and the lack of service delivery in towns such as Rustenburg and neighboring villages in Northwest. So one wonders who really came up with this really clever idea of bringing this very important gathering of the ANC to the Northwest to expose the ANC's failures in a year that's leading to November municipal elections.
All right, sir. Please hold that thought. We'll continue after this break. When we return, we continue with the wrap of the week with our panel. Stay with us. We continue with our conversation with our panel, international relations expert and the director and senior research fellow at the Asia-Africa Dialogues, Thembisa Fakude, and columnist and journalist Mathata Tsedu. Gentlemen, thank you so much again for joining us. I mean, let's go back to the address by the president. I mean, there were some things that South Africans, I'm sure, have welcomed. The issue about the constitution, where there's a program that, a year-long program where South Africans will be engaged on the country's constitution to check if it works for them, because we know that a number of people in this country have often said that the country's constitution does not work for them. Mathata Tsedu, I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, it's a good thing that this constitution that is a product of negotiations essentially between the ANC and the National Party, it's going to be subjected to another round where people's inputs will be sought. Whether the kind of inputs that will be made by people will be taken into consideration to a point where amendments will be made, it's another matter. When you open this door, as Gwede sometimes says, you open the window, you're wanting fresh air, but sometimes even mosquitoes come in the process. So, for example, given the amount of crime that is happening in this country, there's a lot of people who feel that this whole buddy approach towards criminals it's responsible for the escalation of crime, and that, for example, prisoners in jail shouldn't be treated the way they're treated, being fed with what is seen as too good food that those who are outside are not even able to get. Yeah. There are people who feel that the death penalty must come back. So if the majority of people say something like that, is it going to be possible to amend this constitution to take the feelings of the people in and make sure that South Africa then becomes a completely different country? The issue around land, the amendments that are supposed to go in with the Kempton Park negotiations in 1993, the return of the land was locked from 1913. The dispossession of black people of their land in this country did not start in 1913. 1913 was the consolidation of that dispossession. The dispossession started in April 1652 when the settlers arrived on the shores of this country. So what if the majority of people say we need, the reclamation of the land must go back to 1652? Is the constitution going to be able to allow that? So it's going to be quite interesting to see how the inputs by people are going to be handled when they come through. But it's a good thing that it is being done.
It also, when you listen to the president yesterday, he seems to be very aware that South Africans are not happy and that the ANC government and the ANC leaders can do better and should do better. And he, in fact, saying that, some of the internal squabbles within the ANC leadership are the ones also that have actually made people to run away or to move away from the ANC. Surely that is important, Mr. Fakude.
Yeah, well, it is important and it's expected, and it's part of what is known in our business as spin. So the president was spinning himself or his organization out of this quagmire that we find ourselves all as South Africans, of lack of delivery, no water services, potholes, and all other challenges that we're facing. And by the way, this is a very man who drafted this constitution that he now feels it needs to be amended. He was part and parcel and the chief drafter of this constitution. And the other question, of course, what is the problem in this country? Is the problem the constitution or the lack of management of resources and the lack of service delivery? I'll argue that is a lack of service delivery. The amendment of the constitution is secondary to the current and basic challenges that we face as a country. And we've got too many proceedings that are taking place in this country that are taking us away from issues that matter. There's something else that's going on called the national dialogue. Now there's going to be some sort of semi-referendum about the constitution, instead of actually allowing and putting people who are fit for purpose and who will ensure, as the president has said before, that the Western Cape is run better than most municipalities, that the rest of South Africa is run like the Western Cape or Cape Town.
But
I don't agree, by the way, that the Western Cape is the best run.
But
there are a lot of problems and that problems, but we need people who are fit for purpose.
But is it not about constitutional democracy where you take issues out to people and get their opinion? And
of course it is part of constitutional democracy, but I don't know whether the pothole has got a lot to do with the constitution.
Yeah.
The pothole has got a lot to do with this, with an inefficient, not fit for purpose management. The lack of water, it's got nothing to do with constitution.
Yeah.
Crime that continues to impact on the lives of our people has got nothing to do with the constitution. A lack of electricity and all other challenges and socio-economic challenges that we're facing. They've got there are immediate intervening characters that create these problems. But for you to go and redraft a constitution to fix a pothole, that seemed to be a problem for me. And this is what we're seeing happening. It's a continual shifting of goalposts. That one, because there is a problem, you find a reason to spin your way out of the problem by changing the constitution and redirecting the attention of civil society and the people in general into another goalpost. What we need right now, we need simple service delivery. People need opportunities to employment. In fact, the ANC finds itself in a much more complicated position. And as much as I do respect our former president, father, and a respected figure around the world, President Nelson Mandela, the promise of free housing, free jobs, it was a wrong thing to do. You should have said the opportunity to provide housing, the opportunity to provide job opportunities. But to have said that you're going to provide jobs, now it's, chicken have come home to roost. People are looking for those jobs that you promise.
All right.
Instead of having said you're going to provide opportunities and, platforms through which people will be able to access jobs.
Gentlemen, I quickly want us to talk about the issue of Venezuela and Greenland. In fact, I want to start with you, Mathata Tsedu. What now for Venezuela after what we saw last week? You wrote, a beautiful opinion piece.
Yeah, well, the piece was really looking at whether we are next, because we are also in the crosshairs of Mad Max in Washington, D.C. But it's interesting. Right now, the big story that emanates from Venezuela is that Cuba must now either do what Trump is saying or he'll go in. When the Security Council set during the week, the Europeans were iffy about what happened in Venezuela until he said, I'm serious about taking Greenland. And suddenly everybody is saying whatever it is that he wants to go and do in Greenland, it's wrong.
Yeah.
But what you are dealing with is a man who feels that he has all the power. He's the bully of the world, and nobody can do anything about it because everybody is trying to make sure that they don't get slapped with all these huge tariffs.
Yeah.
But at the core of Venezuela is the oil, and not just that America will get the oil, but that China must not get that oil and pay for it in yuans and not in dollars. Because when they do that, they weaken the value of the dollar, on which value the whole American economy is based on the fact that the dollar is the international exchange method.
Yeah.
And what China is doing by buying using its own currency, it's really weakening the American economy. And that is the reason we are faced with that. And in my piece in Times Live, I was arguing that because it's about resources and not the drugs, we should also look at ourselves and prepare.
Mr. Fakude, for the benefit of our audience, why is Donald Trump so fixated with Greenland?
Well, Donald Trump is a bully. Donald Trump is a person who wants to destroy multilateralism. Donald Trump is a person who is transactional and who worships money and power, and he will do whatever it takes to enrich not only his family, himself, and his friends, but also to punish those who go against him. It's a known bullying tactic, and that's what he's currently doing. But whilst he's doing that, of course, he throws the American exceptionalism out the window. And he is going to disadvantage people such as the middle powers that are emerging, because the only survival of the middle powers and other smaller countries is multilateralism. In the absence of multilateralism, it's free for all. Bullies can do as they wish, particularly bullies such as Benjamin Netanyahu. They will thrive in the absence of multilateralism and a viable, functioning international law. And that's what they want. Donald Trump knows that when the dust settles, he's likely to face music, including Benjamin Netanyahu. So what they do is they'll destroy international law, they'll destroy multilateralism. In that manner, they can't be held accountable for their actions. So this is the whole point. It's got nothing to do with the love of democracy. It's got nothing to do with the liberation of the people of Venezuela from the heavy-handedness of Nicolas Maduro. It's got a lot to do with Donald Trump pushing his own objectives and ambition of benefiting his friends, family, and punishing those who go against him.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time tonight. That's Thembisa Fakude, International Relations Expert and Director and Senior Research Fellow at Africa-Asia Dialogues, and Mathata Tsedu, a former editor and columnist.